Is summertime in New York awesome? Because summertime in Chicago is awesome.
Say more.
It's just like, I think part of
I've
it
lived
is
here for 25 years, so you know.
I don't know, like everybody's out at the bars and there's all these rooftop bars and everyone's on the lake running and on their bikes and wearing cute dresses and you know what I mean? Like there's like a summertime Chicago vibe that's very celebratory.
I do think Chicago's probably like on balance 5 to 10 degrees cooler maybe than New York.
Oh, it's been a brutal spring. It's been the worst.
It's New York is very hot. It gets gross and humid and hot and yucky. I mean, what I will say is all of those things are also true. Like there are outdoor markets and like I'm so excited the farmers market is back this weekend. And like there's, you know, all sorts of like cool stuff related to, yes, outdoor seating, bars, all the gardens are open.
Listen, everyone certainly seemed to be outside to watch that boat run into the Brooklyn Bridge.
Listen, the Mexican Navy lost control of their great ship.
I know. Well, you sent me the video about the lady who explained she thinks it got stuck in reverse or whatever.
Great video by a lady who's a professional mariner. And I was like,
you're a real life romance heroine and I appreciate you.
I love you, my friend. And she was like, listen, there's a lot of questions. And I will say, I was asking them.
You're like, what happened?
Here I am like, the Brooklyn Bridge has been there for like close to 150 years. So could somebody explain to me why the fuck this ship thought that it could go under it? And she was like, dummies. The ship did not think it was going under it. Her theory is that it was stuck in reverse.
Well, and it was really interesting to hear her, like at one point, like talk about how difficult it is to navigate the East River or whatever, which I would never.
Because the tides are tiding.
Sure. So
that's why you put your bodies in there. If you got to get rid of them right in the river. Like the Thames. All great cities have a body disappearing river.
Well, can I tell you, okay, you should introduce us. And then I'd like to talk to you about the Chicago River, which is a literal engineering marvel. Do you know this?
Was it moved?
It was reversed. They reversed.
What?
Okay, introduce us and let me tell you about the Chicago River after.
Welcome, everyone, to Fated Mates. I'm Sarah McLean. I read romance novels and I write them.
And I'm Jennifer Prokop, a romance reader and Chicagoan. And when I moved here, right when you know you move to a new place and you're like, tell me your local lore, Chicagoans.
What's the lore? Yeah.
This shit is fucking crazy and amazing. So back in the day, the Chicago River, of course, flowed into Lake Michigan. But, it was the late 1800s and it was like gross. Because,
listen, all water in the late 1800s was
gross.
Disgusting.
So these idiots had the brilliant idea of reversing the flow of the Chicago River so that it would go out instead to the Mississippi.
And send that shit downstream.
Exactly.
Let the South deal with it.
And the Army Corps of Engineers was like, sounds like a plan. I say yes. So they reversed the flow of the river. And the thing that is also now like really weird about it.
They just like built it up on one end.
So what they did is they built some locks at the end of the river to like the lake. And then I don't know how they did it. Like that's the Army Corps of Engineers job, not mine.
My business.
That is not my business. But they did this. And then the thing that's like really intense about it is it changed. Like, okay, I'll put all this in here. Like if you look at a map of the like Great Lakes Basin, right? Like essentially where everything drains into the Great Lakes. It's like, of course, pretty wide around the lakes, except by Chicago. It is literally so narrow because it's all going the other direction.
That's amazing. Well, I grew up in the great state of Rhode Island. And when I was a child, so there was a river that ran through Providence. Well, no, it ran around Providence, basically. Like Providence had been situated on one side of the river.
Yeah.
And we, as you may know, Jen, have one of our greatest the lore of Providence is
the mafia.
The mob is in charge. So
the Army Corps of Engineers did Chicago's river, but you're telling me the mob
did
the...
In this case, it was the mob. The mayor, Buddy Cianci, I'm not making this up, decided that he was going to turn Providence into the Venice of the United States.
Sure.
And so he was like, well, in order for us to be Venice, we're going to need it to be a little more picturesque because right now this town looks like a trash pile. So he was like, what if we took this river and we moved it? And he went to his buddies who were all in construction and other things. And he said, what if we took this river? How much would it cost? And they said, $25 billion trillion. But we know a guy will get it done.
It was the guy in Boston who did the big dig. Same guy.
Joey and Bobby and Nick all got together and they dug a trench, Vinny, and they moved the river. The Providence River now flows directly through the center of Providence. If you are ever in Providence, here's a fun thing. Providence is a fun city in the summer because every other or like every third weekend, there's something called water fire where they actually like light these big cauldrons on the river.
Listen, I grew up in Cleveland. I know what water fire is.
It's different than that.
Okay, fine.
This one's controlled. And then, and you can get in a gondola because it is the Venice of the United States. And gondola your way through the river, down the river, past all these cauldrons of burning wood. It's pretty great. Eric and I were married on a water fire night in a restaurant that was like right on the water. It was pretty fun.
That sounds nice.
Hey, listen, my dad knew a guy. And that is the story of Providence. And this has been two bitches talking about water.
Listen, I love to talk about water. I do. I'm from our Great Lakes state. Great Lakes, great times, right?
Great Lakes, great times. Now, wait, you're from
Cleveland is on Lake Erie. Chicago is on Lake Michigan.
Right. So now, is there like a lake competition? Like, do people from Ohio, they're like, fuck Lake Michigan, Erie's the best?
I will say on social media, there is a very well regarded and very funny Lake Superior account that used to be on The Bad Place, but now it's on Blue Sky. And like that Great Lakes account's always like shit talking the other Great Lakes.
Name is destiny.
Lake Superior, right. I don't know. I just think I would say to me, no, because like we are just proud of all of them together as Great Lakes. Like I just love them all. I love them all equally.
You're just happy for everyone.
I'm just happy for everyone. I'm just happy for everyone. So yeah. Anyway, it's a lot of water. And it's nice. A lot of fresh water right there in my backyard.
That's right, which is why everybody should move to a lake.
Sure.
Great Lake.
Did you ever read the book? Did you ever read the book by Emily Mandel St. John or whatever?
Yes. Yes.
Right?
The Station 11?
Yes. And at some point, I was talking to somebody.
That's a great book.
It is a great book. It is actually a great book. But there's a whole point where they're like all around Lake Michigan. And someone was like, why are they like in a Great Lakes state? And no, it was like, why are they in Michigan? And I was like, is it fresh water?
Mm-hmm.
Because it's the apocalypse. And someone was literally like, oh.
Yeah.
Like they're like, it's so cold. And I was like, yes, but also fresh water.
I have questions about Huron. You never hear about Huron.
Yeah,
now
nobody
Eric's
really.
Like, oh no.
He's like, I told them not to be boring.
You don't. But Eric, honestly, the truth is, like, take it out or leave it in. But the reality is, no one ever talks about Huron.
You know what?
Where is it even? I don't even know.
I will say,
looking
to bring it back to romance, those Jenny Holiday books that were set at on a Michigan, like were set on Lake Huron.
Oh wait, yeah. You know what? You know why? Because Lake Huron's like way up in the.
Oh yeah, shit.
It's way up in
it's
the
way
business.
Up there.
Is it even in the United States? Who can say? Let's see. Yeah, they're in Michigan. Well,
Great Lakes, great times. Were there any? You know what? There was a brief mention of a river in Run Posy Run.
There was.
Yeah, because when Ray drops her off, they're like downtown and they're like by the river.
Oh, yeah. I will say I'm not really clear on where this book is set.
I think it's supposed to be like Pennsylvania. Right?
She references down at the Jersey Shore.
Yeah, no. So I think this is like
and so
Philly.
like I think it's like New Jersey. Yeah. Like I don't know. Philly. The Philly mob. It's fine. Listen, that's the only thing I really have to say that's like, what's the deal with this?
What's the deal with this?
What's the deal with where this book is set? It should be set in New Jersey, though, because I just read this great article. God, I'm going to have to find it. You guys, I'm not even sure where I read it, but if I do find it, I'll put it in show notes. About how the New Jersey mob, when the FBI was trying to get them in the 90s and early aughts, they were tapped. They had wiretapped like a bunch of phones, and they were listening in on a bunch of conversations. And the New Jersey mafia, there are all these conversations where mobsters are talking to each other, and they're like, "Hey, did you see The Sopranos last night?" And then they're like, "Hey, you were in last night's episode," and they're so flabbergasted and delighted because it's like apparently every episode of The Sopranos at some point it started to feel like somebody on the inside was like feeding the writers like stories, and they were like, "Did you see like Jimmy was in the episode last week?" And like it sounds, and there were links to the wiretaps. So now I'm going to try and figure out where all this is. I'm sure it's in like a big article besides the one that I read, but I do feel like that sort of culture. I feel like New Jersey is like culturally the mafia.
Yeah. I mean, I think I assumed it was essentially like Pyle was essentially like a dupe of like kind of Philadelphia, which basically is New Jersey, right? And I can't remember why. I think
Boy, we're gonna get hate mail for Philadelphia is essentially New Jersey. She means geographically, everyone. Don't come for us.
Yeah, I mean, they're very close. Listen.
You guys, Jen's never been in New Jersey. It's fine.
She
doesn't know the truth.
I went to school in Philadelphia, Sarah.
I know, but...
And then I drove through New Jersey on my way to New York. It's fine. No, but I just meant like, when I say Pennsylvania, I did not mean Pittsburgh. I meant more like that side. But,
yeah, Yeah. Eagles country.
Jalen Hurts, baby. Okay. So, yeah, it is interesting though. I am always really fascinated by J.R. Ward. It's like Caldwell, New Jersey, right?
I think it's interesting, right? Because like it does feel like, I mean, we're not even close to being about Run Posy Run at this point, but it does feel like mafia romance specifically. Although I suppose a lot of like romance that's around organized crime kind of waves away geography.
Yeah, I agree.
Like they're sort of in any city, USA.
Or New York.
Yeah. Like I always thought Caldwell from Black Dagger Brotherhood was like Albany. I always thought it was like way
interesting.
Like a kind of small city.
Right, but I was like, why would they all hang out there? I don't get it.
Why are there a bunch of vampires in Albany when New Orleans is right there summoning you?
Well, I mean, I do think that's true. Like there's this series, this Perfectly Imperfect series I've mentioned a couple times. I kind of burned through this by Neva Altej. And a bunch of them take place in Chicago, but like it's not Chicago. It's like nowhere. I mean, at one point, like they're going uphill, and I was like, there are no hills in the city. There are no hills in this state.
It's a great running town, Chicago.
Right? Like it is so flat here. So, I mean, it is really interesting.
Well, because it's not important.
Yeah, like the setting of the mafia is the important part, right?
That's part of the charm for those Milla Finale books for me, because they are set largely. They have a sense of place. Like they're set in New York, or they're set in Italy, or they're set in the Hudson Valley. So,
like, why make up a city, right? And then you just don't you can do whatever you want.
I feel like contemporary romance is really split down the middle between like people who are like, I'm writing a book about this place.
Yeah,
that like. I know, and I like the sense of place is very real. Like the place has lives and breathes on the page. And people who are just like,
city.
It doesn't matter.
Right. I mean, I think that's reflected in pop culture at large, though, too, in a lot of ways. I don't know. Like, don't you just feel like it's sitcom, it's suburbia?
This week's episode of Fated Mates is sponsored by Underlined, a young adult community for book lovers and YA imprints.
So, everybody, if you are looking down the barrel at summer reading for your kid, right? How do I get my kid to find books?
Agita.
How do I get my kid or help, the young reader in my life find great books? Then Underlined is a place that you will definitely want to visit. Big name authors like Kathleen Glasgow, E. Lockhart, Holly Jackson, and Catherine McGee can all be found at Underlined. So it publishes across YA genres, especially though thrillers, fantasy, and there's a special subsection of Underlined called Love Underlined that is for all of your YA romance readers. So it has every genre and title, and I gave this website to a couple of my big readers at school, and they just dove right in and then provided me with an entire list of books that they wanted to see in my classroom in the fall.
Exactly. We did the same thing. We handed it to our 11-year-old in-house, and she spent 45 minutes just scrolling and picking books and taking quizzes. So this is the perfect thing for your young adult reader. And you can find books, giveaways, quizzes, and more on getunderline.com/podcast and follow Get Underline on your preferred social platforms. Again, that's getunderline.com/podcast to get to the Underlined community. And thanks to the team at Underlined for sponsoring this week's episode. So, all right, let's talk about this book, Run Posy Run, which we somehow have never done a deep dive on.
Right. We put it on the best of year, like the year it came out. And it's funny. It's always really interesting to
By
read.
Cate C. Wells.
Yeah. Which it was not her first book, but it was the first book. No, it wasn't even the first book of hers I'd read. Like, you know how sometimes with like indie authors, it just feels like all of a sudden everybody's reading somebody? That's what I kind of remember about the first time I read Run Posy Run. I was actually reading her kind of this other like kind of, I guess like I don't even remember. She had like a series before and maybe a motorcycle club series. I don't remember. And then like this book came out and it just felt to me like one of those books where like everybody's reading it at the same time. And it really held up for me on the total reread. I've reread parts of it before, but I think this is the first time in a while that I've reread like from beginning to end. And in fact, it's like one of those books where I was like, I'm glad I put this on the best of the year list because this book slaps.
It is a great book.
Right? And I think it's just doing a lot of really interesting things and it does them very, very well.
And I think it's interesting because I think it is doing a number of things that that other dark romance has attempted to do and which has not worked for me.
Yeah, right.
And so I'm eager to talk about that because obviously like there are moments in this book where she like walks right up to a line and I think to myself like, oof, I don't know if this is going to go quite the way that I want it, like that I personally can tolerate. But then she sort of somehow does it she's so deft.
When we have kind of done deep dives on books from the 90s, and I think for me, it's like when we did Nobody's Baby But Mine, one of the things we said like sort of over and over again is like, these characters doing really reprehensible things. And the reason it works is because it's really clear that the author is in no way advocating for these
correct.
Like there's this like very clear kind of like clear-eyed distance between what the characters are doing and why it's working for them. Mm-hmm. Without trying to say something about like anybody else. Right. Mm-hmm. And I think part of the reason why Run Posy Run works so well is because I think whatever that alchemy is, it works. They really do put each other through the fucking ringer.
Yeah, they do.
And yet, whatever it is like they have figured it out and they're perfect for each other. Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
So to answer your question about what order this went in, this is her fourth book. The first three were Steel Bones Motorcycle Club books. But Cate C. Wells writes in a really interesting way where she doesn't finish a series. She's writing like all series at the same time. Let's get into it. Jen, I read this book because of you, back whenever we put it on the list. And 1,000% agreed that it just from the very jump is terrific. And part of the reason why it is terrific from the very jump is because this story begins with the heroine being basically like she's coming home. So we have a relationship that is already established. She is Dario Volpe, the hero of this book, is the money guy of a mafia, a house. And he's extraordinarily wealthy. He's extremely good with money. He basically invests. He's like a day trader. He washes all the money and he launders all the money, and then he
makes all the money, right? Yeah,
and he makes them all their money. She and Dario have a relationship where she is basically Dario's woman.
Yeah,
and I use this in a very intentional way of describing her because she does in a lot of ways belong to him at the beginning of this book.
Right.
Like, she's coming home and she's like into him. She loves him. She likes him a lot.
Yeah.
She's sort of convinced herself that she loves him. He's sexy. He's mostly generous. He's bought her like nice jewelry, nice clothes. He like sold her car and bought her a good car. Like, he treats her right. She grew up in a mob like community, and so she's kind of like been around.
Yeah.
Like, her father and her family weren't like respected. They weren't like powerful members of the family.
Well, the reason why though, everything was great for her until her uncle betrayed the mob, right? And then because he was a rat,
right,
her whole family is like on the outs, like
basically iced out.
Yeah, and her dad still has a job, but it's a shitty job at like a laundromat or whatever, right? Like, so it's like essentially they're all iced out, and all she has ever wanted is to like get back in
because it feels like community.
Yeah,
like it's her only option. But she so there's this really like deep in the book. There's this kind of like throwaway reference to another girl who like she used to have sleepovers with when she was young, and like now that girl like won't even doesn't respect her, won't even look at her, right? So she has also been in relationships with like, and like I use relationships in a very vague term, right? Like, these are not decent men in any way, with like, I don't know, half a dozen of these other guys who all work with Dario. But now, for some reason, and it's not entirely articulated why, she is with Dario.
Yeah. At the beginning, we don't know. Yeah, right.
We don't really know. But what we know is that she is happy. And we know that he has bought her a diamond ring.
Right.
That there is a Tiffany box tucked away in like a
sock drawer somewhere. She found it. Right.
And she found it, and she knows that it wasn't there before, and he's purchased this ring for her. So in she comes to the house, and like, boom, talk about starting in the right place. Like, here we are. Everything's perfect. And Dario's like lieutenant grabs her by the arm and drags her to see him. And the moment she walks in the room and sees his face, is like, oh shit, something's happened. Now, it turns out that years ago, 5 or 6 years ago, Posy, Run Posy Run, Posy, was videotaped, like agreed. It's really an uncomfortable situation. Like, she like says she agreed to be filmed while her headphones in, everybody.
Yeah.
We're going to get into some stuff here. She agrees that she will be videotaped with having sex with her, terrible boyfriend. And it's the first time that she has ever had anal. And she is crying and miserable during this experience. The video is time-stamped and date-marked recently, within the last week or two. And it has been Dropboxed basically to every person in this mafia organization. And Dario is furious because he believes she has cheated on him. And he basically says, like, fuck you. If I see you again, I'm going to kill you. Get out. And he takes her clothes, her jewelry, her car. He leaves her with nothing.
Yeah, the suitcase and the duffel bag she came in with, right?
Yep. Leaves her with nothing and basically, like, puts her in a car with his driver and says, like, take her somewhere.
Yeah, get rid of her, right? Go drop her off and get rid of her.
And this is where Jen fell in love.
Yeah, well, you know what? Because I love heroin against a wall, and here she is, right? Like,
Yeah.
It's all wall. And the thing that I think is then, like, you're kind of like, okay, well, what's going to happen? Like, this all seems terrible. But I will tell you, when I really became very invested in the story is when Ray, who's, you know, Dario's, like, most trusted lieutenant, drops her off at this hotel downtown, right? And she's like, kind of like, see you around, right? And she's like already thinking, like, okay, I have $200, but maybe he will not have turned off my credit cards yet, and I'll be able to get a cash advance. And right, she already knows, like, essentially, like, what she has to do. And this is where we start to get a sense of she has been dumped or cast out many times before, right?
Mm-hmm.
In various ways. When Ray says, you know, you're essentially like, you know, you're in danger, right? Because the head, like Dario's boss, you're now a loose end and he's going to come after you.
Mm-hmm.
And she's like, oh shit. And she goes into the hotel, right? Like, sails in, like she's been there before, and goes right to this bathroom. And like, she'd like stopped to try and get money, and like it already was declined. So she throws the card in the garbage, right? Goes into the bathroom, like realizes like really how desperately she is in trouble and she just needs someone to help her. Figures out, like, essentially texts a friend for an address, and then like dumps her phone in the garbage, and she's gone. And this is when I was like, run, Posy, keep running. I love this for you, girl.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Because she is such a survivor, and you really see that. Like, there is no part of her that is like, I can stop and feel sorry for myself, or like, she's just like, I want to live, and so I have to get out of here.
So she needs money, and she knows that she's, like, fucked. So she heads off and lands herself in a, like, tiny small town where she works in, like, the gas station, in the Quickie Mart, like, in the, like, and under the table. And she is desperate for cash. And so she opens basically an OnlyFans account.
Yeah, and calls herself Posy Volpe, right?
Posy Volpe. What? I know. Perfect.
And like, just to fuck with Dario, sends him like the link. And of course, the thing that like,
because she says in it that her interests are like anal.
yes, right? Just to fuck with him. The thing that's so amazing though is like, at this point, what she doesn't know, but we do, is that Dario almost immediately was like, get her back. Get her back. Right? I mean, he calls Ray. I mean, it's like 30 minutes, I think, to the city. And he's like, Ray, go to Better Back. When did you leave her? And Ray's like 20 minutes ago. I mean,
Ray's like, I'm still sitting here.
I'm still sitting
like,
here.
Hasn't even
right?
left.
And, you know, he's like, why you busted my balls? I'm reading the paper or whatever. Right? And so it's, I mean, Dario immediately is like, get her back. And of course, she's already gone. And I was like, listen, I love this.
Yeah.
Right? I love it. I loved, and it really, like, here's the part that's amazing. Like, he doesn't like find her. The first third of the book is her basically being on the run like this, right?
Fucking with him.
Yeah.
So basically she's like, yeah, yes. And he learns pretty quickly. I mean, within the first 10% of the book, he figures out that he has misjudged the situation.
Right. Like someone manipulated him, right?
This is not, the video is not recent, like what has happened. Like now, but what I love about this is he's not like, I made a mistake.
Oh, no.
He's like, well, I fucking hate her still, but I need her back now. Like, and it's
I'm going to make her
what?
pay for leaving me.
What?
I love that shit.
What a dummy.
I love it so much.
So anyway, so she sets up her OnlyFans account. She makes it cost a fortune.
Oh yeah, like $5,000 a minute or whatever.
Sends him the link, and instantly this man is like salivating outside the door of her OnlyFans room. Right, comes in, they have a conversation. It becomes clear that like Dario is obsessed with the games that Posy plays. And this is a motif that comes back again and again and again through the whole book. Like these two, they're chess players. They play like all sorts of strategy games together. They are really, really and Posy thinks like it's the only time that he ever like vaguely is interested in her, like when they play these games. But she's like, he basically just like he just wants to play the games and I'm around. And of course it turns out that like, no, he wants to play the games with her because she's the only person who's like smart enough, savvy enough, clever enough to like strategic enough to beat him. And it becomes really clear, like right at the very beginning when he's searching for her, because now he knows she's out there and he knows she has this OnlyFans account, but she is really keeping it tight. He can't find her, and he is desperately worried that the capo will find her, because if he does, there will be no saving.
Well, and all of this stuff, like, it's really fascinating to watch him, like, kind of start to put the pieces together, right? To realize she's in danger, then to realize, like, wait, we're playing these games, and I want to win them. And I think in some ways, the thing that's like really fascinating about this book is how the break, right? Like this awful moment where he throws her out, they were both faking it before, right? Mm-hmm. She was like, it's my job to like prattle on and be happy and do certain things and like, you know, be dressed at dinner and have my face on. Like all I know how to do is to like act a certain way to like kind of catch you and like keep you happy. You can have sex with me wherever you want. I'm never going to say no. I'm like, right. Like the way that and then like he's been faking it because he's basically like, I am broken inside. I'm like a psychopath, literally. Like whatever that empathy gene is, I don't have it. The only person I care about is you. Right. And that's the thing. Like, he's like, so, you know, when he finally finds her, and listen, he sticks her in a trunk. It's terrible. Right. Like drives her back. And it's really this moment where you're like, oh, he thought it was a game. And she was really like, no, I'm terrified. I think you're going to try and kill me. And so there's like a lot of them, like really like figuring out who they really are. Not just to each other, but like who they really are, right? Because now the masks are off.
The strategy of it all becomes so fascinating, right? Because Posy, yes, of course, thinks that Dario is going to fuck her up, right? Like that this is, I think, he thinks it's a game, haha, and she thinks it's a game, parentheses, sadistic, right?
Right.
And so I think that what's really interesting, though, is he's like, she's hiding and it's strategy. Like she's made this choice. For him, it feels like joyful because like this is how they have always engaged.
Right.
And then later, as the book progresses, it becomes really clear that Dario is playing like 4D chess.
Yeah.
With the organization, with Posy, with himself, like, and always with this like kind of backstory, this background of Posy is in charge. Like, but she doesn't realize it until really. And what's really fascinating is how Cate C. threads the needle for the reader, because we're not 100% sure if Posy is in charge for a little while too, except the threads are all there, right? Like the moment this man is like, I'm obsessed with her. Like she's perfect. She's smart. She's funny. She's clever. And the moment she comes back to the house and she's like, fuck you. I'm not playing your stupid games.
Yeah.
Like, But man, can we talk about how powerful she thinks when she gets back to the house and he's like, you need to wash up. You're like, whatever. And she's like, fuck, he's gonna want to sleep together.
Yeah.
And I just I don't want it.
Right.
And he is it's the POV is really careful. We're not in his POV for any of those scenes, although this is a dual POV book.
Right.
And the first there's a couple of moments where they flirt around, foreplay. They flirt but it feels like power.
Yeah.
And then there's a moment where he's like, you can say no.
You're allowed to say no. And no one's ever said that to her before.
And he clocks so early. And it's interesting because it's it made me feel really uncomfortable and not in a bad way, but the whole sense of what he kept saying to her, how he kept describing her as somebody who was just desperate for love.
Yeah.
You're willing to do anything for anybody just in the hope that they might love you.
Yeah.
Which is such a brutal.
Oh, yeah. I mean, he's
analysis.
Right. And she's so hurt by it.
And she should be. It's very uncomfortable, but it's also true. And he's like, and
why
the lesson
do you do that?
that she needs to learn is she's absolutely capable of being loved without giving up everything.
This week's episode of Fated Mates is brought to you by Patricia Grayhall, author of A Place for Us.
So this is a really interesting structure. It's a historical romance told in two separate times. The early version of this book is 1981. And Joe, a driven environmental attorney based in Washington, D.C., is in England on a journey of self-discovery. And she meets Lauren, this kind of passionate, vibrant personality in a London pub in 1981. And they have this incredible connection. It's brief, but absolutely intense, full of big emotions. But there's the Atlantic between them. Joe is busy being working girl back in Washington, and immigration is not, possible at the time. And so they just sort of part ways, but they keep in touch. And fast forward 22 years to Joe and Lauren unhappy in their separate relationships on either sides of the Atlantic, which, what else is there to do? Lauren and her partner decide they're going to travel to visit Joe in San Francisco, which feels a mess.
I love it already.
The reunion is electric, of course. All those big old feelings that they were feeling in the 80s are back full force in the early 2000s. And these to end up realizing, against the kind of big backdrop of the Pacific Northwest during this reconnection, that they are it for each other. And they've made this kind of big tactical error over the last 20 years. So obviously they're drawn to each other. They know they're both in relationships that need to end in order for them to have happiness. But also this is the early 2000s and gay marriage isn't legal in either country. And the big question is, how are these two going to make it work in spite of the world?
So welcome to Pride Month, everybody. This might be a great book for you to discover if you're looking for a second chance romance that crosses borders and explores all of the ways in which people have to be true to themselves, but also wanting to find love with someone who truly understands you. It is available in print and ebook. And if your podcasting app supports it, you can click on the chapter title right now to be taken to buy the book. Thanks to Patricia Grayhall for sponsoring this week's episode. It's a real tour de force of narration, right? I'm on the record a million times for saying I don't love first present, but I think it's really well done here. Because I think there's so many ways in which the things they're saying to themselves are like, right. So like when she's still missing, like he's constantly like, once he figures out she's on OnlyFans, right? He's like sending her like requests. So like I sent her a request. I like wanted to see if she would answer it or whatever. And then when they finally talk again, she says, "You've sent me 119 private meeting requests in the past 6 days." Right. And it's just this moment where like there's so many things where they're like kind of admitting one thing, but then the other one names it. Right?
Yeah.
And I think like this is the thing that she says like sort of over and over again is like, I think she accepts the idea that he really is like, and I mean, I'm using the word psychopath like literally the way it is used in the book, which is like, I don't care what other people think. I'm not invested in this is what he believes. And yet it's really clear to us from the jump that he does care about her, right? Like the reason he throws her out of the house and loses his temper and he like throws his laptop against the wall is not, he's not playing games. He is just, the idea that she cheated on him devastates him.
Mm-hmm.
And even though when he gets her back, he's like, I kind of figured out what was going on. I know it was faked. There are several more times in the book where she says like, I would never cheat on you. Right. Like, it's like this really interesting conversation where it's like, again, that like, well, why were you with me? Right. Right. Like, why were you with me? Why didn't you ever say no? Why didn't you don't have to always like, I mean, at one point he's like, why were you choking on my cock? Why were you so anxious to get on your knees and choke on it when I never asked you to do that? Mm-hmm. And this is, I think, the part about the book.
And happy, like you obviously hate anal, but
yes,
like you were
you
totally
never said
happy
no.
for me to do
and
it.
At one point he jokes, he's like, you practically breathe like it's a Maz when we do it, right? And so, and that's like the journey for her is, why was I like that? Why was I so,
But it's interesting
right?
because that scene, especially the scene where they talk about anal, is another moment where like he's like borderline unlikable through a lot of this book. Like,
yes,
he's like, you never said no, right?
Right.
And I'm like, yeah, but you clocked that she hated it. Right. So what we're actually seeing here, and it's this interesting moment though, where what Cate C. Wells is doing is she's having to turn his ship around too.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Because yes, he did clock that she didn't like it. And like there was a part of him that noticed it and filed it away. But like he didn't stop.
No.
He didn't not do it.
No.
Because like this is the Dario show.
Well, and this is like the agreement we've made. You got the watch and the car, and this is the you know.
Listen, as you know, I have a lot of feelings about cunnilingus. And it is deployed very well in this book.
Yeah, right.
And the reason why, so listen, everybody, have I talked about this on Maine? I don't think so.
I'm sure you have.
But now is the time.
Yeah.
I think I talked about it in Bantr Plus. FYI, everybody, if you join the Patreon, you get one extra episode of this podcast every month. And Jen and I are a little bit less like cautious in the things that we say on that one. So I think we maybe talked about this in Bantr Plus, but I want to talk about it here too, which is right now in May of 2025, I have noticed a rash of recent books. And I would say recent is the last like 2 years of contemporary romance where the hero does not go down. And in many of these books, the hero comes first.
Yeah.
Which is frankly unacceptable to me.
And that is their entire sex life until she comes back, right? Is like.
And here's what I'll say, everyone. I literally DNF those books. Like without hesitation. Like if that happens, I'm out. And so and that is just my personal that's my bar.
We all have our standards, Sarah.
And I think it's really, but I mean, I will say I have only recently started DNFing those books. I will also say I will not name the person, but I brought this up recently with a person who is extraordinarily well read in like a world of romance that I actually don't read very much of. And like in dark, right? Everybody knows I'm not a huge dark romance reader. Like she reads a lot of dark romance. She reads a lot of like dark contemporaries, or like these kind of like edgier, like indie contemporaries. And I mentioned this to her and she said, "Oh yeah, you're 100% right." And so I have a lot of questions and concerns about the way that like we're presenting sex and like the female gaze and women's pleasure and like bodies with vulvas. But I am going to I'm going to just lay that out for everybody. You all can like connect the dots yourselves. It's 2025. But in this particular book, what's interesting about it is Dario does not like like
he's never done it before.
Prior to that, like there are several moments where like he like gets her off in a different way, or like there's, Posy is enjoying the sex in this book. But there is a moment where he's basically like, she is, he like basically says like, okay, lay down, like, put your foot on my shoulder, right? Like, or she's not laying down. I forget where they are actually, but she's standing up. And then he's like, okay, I'm going to do this thing. And she says to him, have you ever done this before? And he's like, no. And she's like, do you want me to tell you how? And he's like, nope. And like, he basically, then he like goes down on her in with precision.
Yeah, well, because he watched her.
He's aware of how to get her off.
He was like, I want make yourself come. And then he watched her like, now I know what to do, right?
And listen, more men should do this. In general is what I'm guessing, is what I'm sensing from the fact that nobody goes down in romance novels anymore. But but what I want to say about this is like this moment, and it's something we've seen before. The hero of the master also has never gone down on a woman.
I will admit, one of my favorite tropes, and they're like, this is the best thing I've ever done.
It is a great trope because it is the fastest way to ensuring the characterization of I have never cared about another person's like happiness. But it matters to me that you come. And when you come, that makes me happy.
Right. And that I think the part that the way that sex is deployed in this book is really interesting. Of course, it's the thing that breaks him at the beginning, right? Like this video, right? And the thing that's really fascinating is there's a part where after he like gets her off in this limo and like comes all over her and is like, you're going to walk into this dinner with all the other mafia guys and you're like, don't wash off. Like, that's what I want. She's like, okay. She is like, they're all like laughing at her and giggling. Everybody has seen this video, right? And Dario is completely unconcerned, just does not seem worried about it. And she's kind of horrified almost. Like, why has he brought me here? Doesn't he realize that people are going to be treating me this way? Like, whatever. And instead, and I remember thinking, I like found myself thinking like, this is a room full of killers and criminals who've broken every law in the book. And what they're doing is shaming this woman for like having sex with a boyfriend when she was 18. Right? These are men who have all like beaten up their wives and girlfriends. Like, you know what I mean? And I just found myself thinking like, there's so many times where you really see, and like where Posy herself is wildly aware of just how fucking unfair it is, right? Like sort of like the literal patriarchy that is like, and she doesn't just think about it in terms of like the mafia and its expectations for her, but also like who taught this to her, her own mother, right? Like, and there's like lots of scenes where she thinks about her mom taking her down to like play chess against old guys in the park. But the minute it was 4:00, even if they were in the middle of a game, it was really interesting. They'd get back on the bus. And I thought that was really interesting, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like they weren't driving the car,
hidden.
Right? She was being hidden,
they were
right?
hiding
They were hiding it. They go back home because her mom had to like put on her face and get dinner ready. And like Posy herself is like really interrogating, how did I get here? and that I think that kind of Adrienne at one point called her clear-eyed, like just really clear-eyed about who she was and how she'd gotten there. And I think that is one of the things that I think makes this book probably like one of the things I think makes this book extraordinary is how at this she really is truly questioning herself. It's not just like, okay, I'm gonna just go back to being the way it was. Like it's like something broke when he tossed me out and I went on the run, and we're not going back to that place. I can't. And it's partly because he's different, but because she's different too. Right. And I find that her like ability to like sort of like really face these ugly truths about herself, why she acts a certain way, why she's so desperate for love, like why she will do anything for it, like what the crucible that formed her, right? And all of the ways that this has like informed how she was with Dario before the breakup and how she doesn't want to do that anymore. It's really fascinating to me. And I think honestly, you don't really see books that are quite as, it's not even introspective. It's just like cold, hard truth. This week's episode of Fated Mates is brought to you by Darcy St. John, author of Racing Heart, the second book in the Apex Racing series.
So this one is for our F1 girlies out there. Notoriously hot-headed race car driver Jordan Ruby is grappling with the aftermath of a potentially career-ending crash, which means I'm invested because I love it when they're broken. So he's had a disastrous few months. He's now trying to recuperate and, heal some broken bones. And on a whim, he decides he's going to head to a seaside town in Wales to lie low until his twin sister Mia is married in Scotland. There he meets straight-laced advice columnist Pearl Carrington, who is already off kilter because of something going on in her own life. She stumbles upon Jordan at the beach like a proper merman situation I'm hoping for. And after that, and they sort of have this like quick meet cute, he makes a spur of the moment decision to invite Pearl to be his +1 to his sister's wedding. And while she is notoriously risk averse, she decides she's going to take her own advice, the advice she would give a stranger as an advice columnist. And she says yes, which leads to a road trip through idyllic English countryside and a few days in an actual castle with a virtual stranger, though there is a fair amount of family drama here because no wedding is without that. And the two of them learn that they might just need each other to do the healing.
Amazing. So if you would like to check out this racing romance where strangers go on a road trip, then you would love to read Racing Heart. It is available in print or with your monthly subscription to Kindle Unlimited. And if your podcasting app supports it, you can click on the chapter title right now to be taken to buy the book. Thanks to Darcy St. John for sponsoring this week's episode.
She's very uncommon as a heroine. It clocks similarly for me to Molly O'Keefe.
Yeah.
And I think another writer who you love, another series that you love, and I think it's because these heroines, when you put a heroine up against the wall, right, and you strip everything from her, and she really does strip Posy of everything, not just like money, like she doesn't like, it's really sad, like her family, her like the idea, like every possible friendship she's ever had over the course of her whole life is just a joke now. Like she is alone. And there is something very powerful about a heroine who is alone. And we have seen this over the last 50 years in romance, right? Like there's a reason why Julie Garwood heroines are great. And I think all of that is true. I do think that there are these really like beautiful moments though where Kate manipulates the reader with Posy's aloneness. And there were many moments in this book on the reread over the last couple of days that I kind of paused to think about the way the prose is really like thoughtful about how it deploys Posy's feelings. She doesn't deploy Dario's feelings in the same way. Like Dario feels very like an explosion, right? Like he's just a ticking clock. Like you can hear the ticking from the moment this book begins with Dario. But with Posy, she's so like tight. She's so uncomfortable. She's so on edge. She's so uncertain that the writing feels uncertain. Like the writing makes you feel like anything could go wrong at any moment. And it's really beautifully done in a way that like there aren't that many romances where you feel the same feelings as a heroine who is feeling this kind of intensity.
There's a part where he says, she's a feast of feelings and I'm hungry. Right? And she is just like a complete, like, and sometimes I also find myself feeling like, what world are you in? Right? Like where like her feelings are like, this is the only world she knows. And so like she found this place of safety in it, even though like it never really accepted her, but like it's what causes all of these like sort of problems. And he's the one who's sort of like, why are you doing this? But there's a part, it was just like, I don't know, I really thought this was funny. Like there was this part where he throws her in the trunk. Everybody, it is terrible. He like tapes her up and throws her in the trunk, right? And he's so happy to have found her. And she's like, this motherfucker is happy, right? And she says, I actually highlighted it because it really made me laugh. Everyone's heard that if you're in a trunk, try to kick out the lights. And I was like, who is everyone? I was unaware that this is what you're supposed to do.
But that feels like something the mob would teach.
Right? But like...
teach its youngins.
Yeah, but like it's young women, right? Like what is your worth and what is your value? And then like what are the like warning things you need to know? And so it really helps explain like why she is the way she is in the world, right? Like I was sort of fascinated by like those moments almost more than anything else where I was like, wait, everyone knows?
Yeah. I mean, everyone knows, Jen. Come on. I want to talk about the ending because I feel like there's something really interesting going on in the ending too that I think dark romance has. This kind of got there. This book kind of got there before dark romance was a big deal.
I think. Yeah. I mean, I think before we talk about the ending, I just want to say like one thing, which is like, I do think that this is a book that has like almost could have benefited from like part 1, part 2, part 3. Right? Like, so like her being on the run.
Those are fighting words for me. I fucking hate that structure.
I mean, fair enough. But I will say like.
Just write the book.
Yeah. Okay. Fair. But what I mean by that is like, there's really clearly distinguished parts of this book, right? Like, so she's on the run. And then there's like, they're in the phone booth, but the phone booth is the house, right? Like once she's back.
And then the shit hits the fan.
And then it's the shit hits the fan. And it does feel like there are very distinct movements in this book. Let me just say it that way.
I think that's true. It's a strong 3-act structure. How about that?
Very strong. Yeah, for sure.
So I don't want to necessarily, we don't have to end after we talk about the end because I actually just want to talk about violence in this book, right? Like, I think there is a lot of there's a lot of hands-on in this book. And we see Dario as an instrument of violence from the very beginning, right? Like he's terrifying. He terrifies Posy from the very first page.
Yeah. But what's interesting is the other guys just think of him as like the nerdy money man. They don't understand how dangerous he is. She does.
But like all the men, this like the masculinity in this book is very violent. And it's an interesting look at how we think about, like, listen, you're talking to somebody who, like, I love a man who puts a fist into a face. I really do. I just think it's it's really different in this book. It feels heavy with violence, and the violence is in the hands of men here. And what's really interesting about it is it's having this kind of dialogue through the whole book about what kind of violence is acceptable and what kind of violence is necessary in order to kind of protect Posy, to evolve a like patriarchal, terrifying, dominant culture, to like, I don't know. I mean, like, I don't think I was thinking about this when I first read this book, but like, I think in 2025, reading this book, it feels like sometimes you have to fight fire with fire. And Dario, at the end of this book, there is obviously like the baddie in this book is the capo of the organization. So, like, there's no way that this book ends without, there are two ways. It either ends with them on the run or the capo is taken out. But in order to take out a capo, you have to take out all their lieutenants too. And what's interesting is Dario wouldn't have ever dreamed of doing this. This is not in his cards. But the moment he realized he was in love with Posy, all bets were off. Anybody who ever harmed her, looked at her sideways, thought a bad thought about her, or threatened her was done. And so there is a very gruesome kind of climactic scene here where he takes out everyone. And it really feels like an indictment of certainly patriarchy, but also masculinity.
There's like a preview of this scene when she first comes back, the boss, right, the capo or whatever, hears about it, and Dario realizes there's a mole in the house. And he's like, it's not Ray, because Ray's my guy, I'm pretty sure, but it's Ivano, right? And he's like, and it's really fascinating because he is like, I'm going to bring Posy down and I'm going to kill this guy in front of her.
Yeah,
right?
Like, I'm going to show
her that I can take care of her.
And he thinks it's a gift to her.
Yeah, and she's like, he's trying to show me he'll kill me if I try, right? Like, it's just like one of these moments where they really like miss each
real,
other.
Like, men are from Mars, women are from Venus.
100%, right? Where she's like throwing up on herself and he's like, I thought you would like this, right? Like, really, like, completely. But then when at the next, right, the big scene, when then, like, 10 people are dead or whatever, right? Like, it's everybody's taken out and she doesn't know what's going on. And it's clearly like Dario and this other guy have made a plan and blah, 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 right? She's kind of like, I understand this needed to happen. And she's still really upset about it and she's scared, but there's a point where she's like, I have to trust him because he's like, Posy, don't run, right? Like, don't run.
Right. Yeah, he gives her the Queen's Gambit.
Right? And it's really fascinating. And then at the end, right, like there's a part where like she has to do violence to save him.
Yep. And that's where it's really interesting because Posy doesn't do violence at all. She never even comes for Dario. Like, there's never a moment in this book where she even thinks to do violence. And then at the end, like, she does. And it's interesting because I was thinking about how when we were talking, we did our dark romance episode, and over the course of the years, we've talked a lot about dark romance, right? And about how there's something very different between Morality Chain and dark romance. And Morality Chain in Morality Chain, like, a love pulls a dark hero into light. And in dark romance, this dark hero pulls partner into darkness. Right. And I think this book is really writing a very thin line of like not doing that. Like, it is dark in the sense that, like, at the end of this, he's not capo. He's second in command, right? Or ish. He's still the money
They call
guy.
him, like, Luca calls him consigliere, right?
But so he's not capo, but he's also not he has an immense amount of power. He's clearly not afraid to do violence if he needs to. But like there is sort of a sense that like Dario and will handle this in a better way. Versus, and then Posy has to be violent, right? On her own terms. And so interestingly, I was just having like some cognitive dissonance thinking about how like, okay, this is a book where she is brought to violence, right?
Yeah.
Like she is, but like, it doesn't feel like she's been brought down.
No.
It feels like they're both kind of moving.
Right.
This feels like organized crime nobility.
Yeah. Right.
Ish.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, like, guys, this is tricky, right? I actually think organized crime in contemporary is incredibly difficult.
Yeah.
Because I think, like, it's very difficult. When I write it, like, in Victorian England, you can Vaseline the lens and sort of say, like, these are noble criminals.
As opposed to, like, they're running meth and destroying small towns across America or whatever. You know, I think part of
we don't 100% know what this mob is doing.
Well, we just know it doesn't really, in some ways it doesn't matter. This is the brilliance of it. He's the money guy. He just launders the money and makes money
over and over and over.
Right. And at one point he sort of says to her, like, the first month you lived with me, I lost $3 million.
Adorable.
Because I was spending so much time like playing games with you. He's like, so then I just had to like pull back for a little bit and invent an entire new way of like doing this so that I didn't have to manage it anymore and I can spend this time with you.
This week's episode of Fated Mates is sponsored by Avon Books, publishers of Alexis Daria's Along Came Amor, the final book in the Primas of Power series. I'm so excited.
And you should be. In this one, we get Ava Rodriguez. Okay, listen, middle school teacher, very close to my heart. And her ex-husband, essentially, she's now divorced, right? Ex-husband declared he wanted to follow his dreams. And on the day that she essentially signs her divorce papers, she's at an Atlantic City hotel for a teaching conference, and she runs into a very handsome man at the bar, Roman Vasquez. And it turns out, is not just any handsome man, he owns the hotel. They have an epic one-night stand. Ava is basically like, why not? And this really delicious night together kind of turns into a bit of a like hidden affair. Ava is just really wary of like kind of getting involved with someone again and having her whole family know about it and weigh in on it. The public dissolution of her marriage just really sent her into a tailspin. So imagine her shock, surprise, and dismay when at her cousin's engagement party, who is there as the groom's best man but Roman? And so all of a sudden her boundaries have just been blown out of the water, and Roman can't understand why she wants to keep him as a dirty little secret. He is a successful, amazing, handsome CEO. What is going on?
Dummy.
All of the pressure on Ava to like figure this out. It is a terrific romance and a great end to a series I know Fated Mates listeners have loved.
Well, if you can't wait for the end of this series and you want to read about this dirty little secret, then you can read Along Came Amor right now in print or ebook. If your podcasting app supports it, you can click on the chapter title right now to be taken to buy the book. And as a special treat for Fated Mates listeners, if you hang around after this week's episode, you'll get a sneak peek at the audiobook of Along Came Amor. Thanks to Avon Books and Alexis Daria for sponsoring this week's episode.
This other thread about Daria is really interesting, which is he's hot, he's handsome, he's rich. What she never understands is like, why didn't anybody else ever get with him? Right? Is it just that he's like so weird and loves playing games and that's what she couldn't figure it out until and it's really interesting, right? Yeah. Like the reveal to her, and it's done in a really cool way, is like essentially like nobody messes with Dario because he killed his stepmother. Right?
Yeah.
And everybody knows it. And even she's like, listen, this is the mob. They're violent, but nobody would do that.
He killed his stepmother because he was told to. Now he was instructed to.
Right. And
like, so that's what we're told is like, the ruling came down because the woman had dementia and was talking.
Yeah.
And like there were secrets that she knew. And so like
And
the
he did
capo
it,
called
yeah.
for his death and Dario did it.
Right.
But
what she finds out is that none of that's true. Like that's all like flim-flam and gossip, right? That essentially he had a stepbrother who was essentially about the same age, right? This was the stepmother's like son,
biological.
right?
Yeah.
Biological son. And he could see his mother, but knew she was miserable, knew she was in so much pain, but she didn't live in the home with her. Dario did. And because he had sort of been cast out, like, right, like all the whatever. And so essentially Luca says, put my mother like out of her misery. Will you kill her so she's not in pain anymore? She's like dying of cancer and she's right. Like, and so Dario essentially agrees to do this because he, you know, he like dopes her up with morphine and breaks her neck. Right. And it's brutal. I'm like, and it's just like this moment where you're like, why did he do it? Like, right. Why didn't you smother her with her pillow? Like I had so many questions, but he was a kid and he was like, I think he really was like, I just want to make sure. I mean, who knows? It's like a really fascinating moment where we then understand that like he was asked to do it, but by someone who loved her. Right. And it's just like a really fascinating way in which Luca
and these are the two men who end up running
like running
the organization, which I think makes listen,
yeah.
Will it appease everyone? Maybe not. But I was like, all right, these two are gonna do all right.
Yeah, I was
killing old ladies.
I mean, is really fascinating too, because I think it's the hidden like underneath part of this is that she was so convinced the entire time that Dario like didn't listen to her and didn't care about her and didn't pay attention to her. And in fact, like that's all he does, right? And that's like the part of the book that's like then speaking of him being really clear-eyed as well, right? Like she comes back and there's a scene where he's like touching her all over and she's like, you would never touch me like this before. What are you doing? Like she can't even quite figure it out. And he's like, well, I thought you'd figure it out that I'm wrong. Right. Like, and so you understand like all of the bad sex they had was because he didn't, right. Like he was hiding the fact that he was like, I don't care about people the right way. There's something broken inside me, but I care about. And he describes the moment when it happened, right? They were playing chess and she beat him and she lets out some like screech. And he's like, and it's the first time I like felt a feeling, literally. Like we joke about men not feeling feelings in these books. Dario Volpe has literally never felt a feeling, but he can feel her feelings, right?
There's a great moment where he's like with the capo and the capo's like, kind of like, hey, you need to get your shit together. Like this woman can't stick around. Like, and he's watching her about to jump into the pool. And he's like, she never just like dives into the pool like a normal person. She like gears herself up and then shouts and jumps in. And it's so joyful and I love it. Right. And I mean, I think there are some really classic moments in this book that feel old school. Like that's an old school hero looking at his like perfect, like grumpy sunshine vibe. You know, this book is, I think, so fascinating to me because it is the mashup of what is new and what is old.
Yeah, I think so.
It feels fresh and familiar at the same time.
I mean, maybe we should have said this like not an hour in, but like you would definitely have to check your content warnings to like read this book, right? Like I think there are a lot of ways in which it was a challenging read, like emotionally for me. Like, right?
Agreed.
And
it is not an easy read.
No, but I think that there are ways in which like there are lots of, like you said, really classic ways that it breaks like the tension of like these most intense scenes or right. Like there's a part where like, it's the part, remember where he's like going to beat this guy to death in front of her to like, right. The rat in the house. And she's, she's like, don't kill him. And he looks down like he's not dead. Like, right. Like, you know what I mean? Funny. And but I found myself thinking, like, that's like a classic thing. Like, here's been this horrifying moment. She is literally so horrified, and then, like, break the tension with this joke. I mean, like, it felt in that way, like the pacing of it felt like really, I don't know, like it understood, I think, a lot of really intuitive things about how, like, when something is so hard, how are you going to, like, what is the resting place for your readers? And what is the resting place for your characters? And I think what this book really understands is, like, the resting place has to come after moments of, like, real emotional intensity, right? Like, the whole book can't be rest, right? The whole book can't be rest. And so,
say it louder, Jen.
Right? And I think that that's the part that's, like, really fascinating about how he is, like, gonna change for her too, right? Like, I mean, at one point he says to her, like, I'm the same man, like, you just know me better now. Right?
And that's true.
Yeah.
He doesn't change.
No. He's the same. She changes.
If anything, he gets sort of worse.
Yeah, because I think he thinks I don't have to hide from her anymore, or I can't hide from her anymore. I think at one point he's like, I put in all this fucking work and then I blew it. Right? I had her on the hook. I almost had her, and then I fucking blew it because I lost my own mind.
Yeah.
And I was fascinated by that.
I mean, when I say that he gets worse, I mean, he gets, like I said, he gets really violent. He gets sort of willing to do whatever it takes to protect her in a way that, like, that's not how he is at the beginning. This also has your favorite trope in it, or one of your favorite tropes, which is, what if the baby comes out wrong?
Yeah, listen. I love that. Where he's like, I'm going to give you a baby.
And she's like, that sounds like a terrible idea, because she has a head on her shoulders, right. Everyone.
You know what, though? The greatest journey of this book is her realizing, though, like, I do have a head on my shoulders, but something about what he wants to give me is exactly what I want.
Oh, she says it. She articulates it. I want a white picket fence and a dog. And yeah.
At some point, like, again, in one of these fights where he is just, like, really says to her, right, like, why are you like this or whatever? And, and she's like, I don't throw your issues in your face. And he said, my issues aren't self-destructive. And I was like, okay, it's kind of got you there, Posy. But I think, like, that's the thing about this book that, like, really works is, like, they are not right for anybody else, and they are all, like, completely fucked up in their own way. Like, right, both of these people, but they're perfect for each other. And when he is able to say to her, like, I think I was a psychopath, but now I think I'm a sociopath because I do care about people, but it's a person and it's you. Right? I have changed.
Yeah.
And she's like, wait, is that real? You know what I mean? It's great. It's a great moment. It really is.
Yeah. I mean, it really reads like a professional driver on a closed course, this book. I feel like it feels like she was holding on to the reins of about a team of horses writing this. It's kind of incredible that she pulled it off.
I think it's really something else to, like, have started this book where you did, right? Which is like essentially the book starts at the third act breakup, right? Of, like, some previous book where, like, these two really, I'm never going to believe they're HEA.
Yeah, like a not very good book.
Right? And I do think that there is something really compelling about, it's like, one of the things I think, okay, this is maybe, whatever, we're an hour deep, it's fine. I've struggled a little bit with what I've seen happening lately in some contemporary romances, which is like, it's a pickleball romance, it's a Wordle romance, it's a, right, like, almost like a shtick. And the only thing I know how to compare it to is there's sometimes, like, there's, like, a string of songs that happen, right? And it's like, there was one that was like, I don't know, about, like, a payphone or something, right? Like, it's a song about a payphone and the metaphor is the payphone. And, like, I'm like, okay, but it's a song. It's 3 minutes. Like, it's a pickleball romance, it's a Wordle romance. Like, that's not enough to actually sustain a novel, right? Like, to me, like that could be something they do, but it can't be the book. And the thing that I think this book does really, really well is it shows their game playing as, right, they play chess, they play Othello, they play Risk, they play Scrabble, they, right, like, you name it, if it's a strategy game, they played it. There's like, right, but it is not about the game, it's about them. Right, it's about them. And it's fascinating because, like, Dario explains, like, the first night he went home with her, he's like, I picked her up, I went home with her, and he's like, it was mid and I was ready to leave, but then I saw this cheap cardboard chess set and we played 3 games and she beat me at 2 of them and I moved her into my house a week later. Right? And that's like one story he tells himself. But then as time goes on, there's all these other details that come to light about how he could tell that this boyfriend was beating her up. And she's like, you didn't even know me then. That he had been watching her, right?
In the climactic moment of the book, I mean, he tortures this man and remembers everything mark that was on her.
Yeah. What did he do to you? Where did he hit you? Right?
That's why you had a black eye. That's why you had a, yeah.
And so you're like, wait, so is that story you told yourself about how you're ready to walk away from her until you saw the chess set the truth?
For Dario, the killing, the subtext of the killing of the stepmother does a lot of character work, because it does tee us up to believe that Posy isn't the only one. Like, there is something in him that is humane and beyond the two of them. And I think as I'm saying this, I'm realizing that I'm coming to terms with my own sort of distaste for so many of these romances that are reverse morality chain, right? And the reason why I have distaste for them is because I don't care for a character who is only good because of the relationship that they are in, right? And now it's interesting because I can hear people already being like, but what about Lothair? And here's what I would say, like, not Lothair, because like in all these if you name any morality chain hero, there's always like something extra, something aside from the heroine,
yeah,
right? Or aside from the partner, from the object of their love. And it's like a friend or or like this like act of like incredible kindness to,
well, and he says something like, I would sit with her every day or whatever, like, right, like, yeah,
his stepmother and his stepbrother, right? Like, and so I think there is a part of me that feels like without that moment with the stepmother, I might not have been,
yeah, because I think it really calls into the question, like, the story these men are telling themselves, right? Like,
yeah.
Like, we get this amazing scene with Lothair where you realize, like, he and Nyx have been, like, best friends for thousands of years or whatever.
Oh, my God. Lothair loves everybody. He loves that child Thad. He loves Ballady. I mean, like, he loves everybody.
This is like Dario and Ray, his guy Ray, like, right? He totally is.
Yeah.
I mean, so I think that is very similar, right? As opposed to, like, actually showing me this guy who just is that, like, closed off or whatever and has nothing. If this book really, I will say, I really enjoyed it on the reread. So much. I highlighted a million things.
Me too.
Because I do think that this is such an amazing, like, the arcs for these characters are so strong. Right? Like, really showing, like, a huge breach of trust and how it completely breaks everything and how they have to change in relationship to it because they don't know how to not be together.
Yeah.
One of the things that it's very easy to, like, overdo, I think that this book does an extraordinarily good job understanding the, like, physical tells that people have for their emotional states.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there'll be times where he's like rubbing his chest and like kind of being like, oh, that like whatever I ate didn't, you know what I mean? And like, we're like, no, you dummy, you're lovesick, right? You're literally lovesick. And I think it's way more pronounced for him than it is for her. And it's such a smart way to give the reader insight into the character that the character does not have into themselves.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
You know, he talks about like, but like, you know, feeling like his head is rushing or roaring or buzzing feelings, right? Like, you know, his stomach hurts. He like, you know, I was just, you know, it's really fascinating to like kind of see that happen. And my memory of it is like, as he becomes more integrated, like his feelings become something he can face, there's less of that. It's like more pronounced at the beginning of the book than after.
Mm-hmm. He also like comes online as a character, right? Like he begins the book really like so tightly wound and like reserved. And then as of course, like all the emotion, all the whatever happens, like there's that great moment at the very end after the sort of climactic moment where everybody dies, like he kills everybody, he tortures the guy, like, and then she's like, I gotta get the fuck out. And she runs. Oh, there's a river. She runs to the river and he says, don't jump in the river. We'll all get tetanus. You know, and it's like very fun. Like there are moments of very like clear humor in here. It's really fun book and shit happens in it. Like it moves, this book.
One of my favorite lines in this book, and I don't know why, right? And it's like, I think it's back to like the physical part. And I had highlighted it, and this is like pretty early. I can't remember if he even has her back yet, or maybe they're just like talking, right? And I highlighted this, right? Like, my fingers twitch. I want her closer. If she were in my arms, I wouldn't feel this empty-handedness. Right? And it's just like, he can't even say, right? Like, empty-handedness.
There's that other moment where he's like, she gets out of the trunk. Oh, yeah. And it's like later, and there's like a bruise on her arm. And he's like, what the hell is this? I didn't even touch you. And she's like, you threw me in a trunk. And his response is, well, I don't like that.
Yeah.
And you're like, motherfucker, you did it.
Yeah. Or like the part where he's like draws her the bath and she's like, you're going to kill me to death in there? It's like scalding. And he's like, what are you talking about? And she's like, feel how hot it is. He's like, why didn't you ever tell me? And she never thought of it as like her home. It was his. I'm not going to tell you.
And then she's like, why didn't you notice? And he's like, I only take cold showers. Of course.
It's so great, right? It really is but you see like, right? Oh, so this book is really, it's a real tour de force. Yeah.
It's a great book. It's a great book. It really does the job. And I think even if you don't like this kind of book, obviously I think you have to like this kind of book to love this book. But even if you don't like this kind of book, there is a lot to be learned from how this book comes together.
Yeah. It has what I think of as being like a really brilliant ending, right? Which is like, and listen, I want to talk about it just because it's not a baby log in the traditional sense, right? Mm-hmm. But he does get her pregnant, and then it like kind of skips forward until she's like 6 months pregnant, which is when like, you know, she has to do some violence. And then this is when we understand that like what he's really worried about is that like, one, it's first like the baby will come out wrong, right? Will you still love the baby if it's like me? Mm-hmm. And then what we understand, of course, is like what he's really about is like, will you still love me if I can't love the baby? Mm-hmm. Right? Like, what if I can't love the baby? And so then, like, right, there's this scene where at the end, it's like she's giving birth and he's out in the hallway with Ray. And, she's like kicked him out because, and it's great. Like they're into like a birthing center. It's a doula. And he's like, what the fuck? Like, why did I say yes to any of this? Clearly she should be in a hospital. This is garbage. And then there's this really funny line where he's like, she wanted to give birth in a pool, but there was no way I was going to let that happen. And you're like, she totally played you. She didn't want to give birth in a fucking pool. This is Pose Santoro, but she did want to give birth in the birthing center. Right. Mm-hmm. And so this is how she got you to say yes to that. And the greatest part about it is like, right. So then the baby's born and he goes in and he's only looking at Posy. Right. And you're like, oh shit, maybe he's not going to love the baby. Mm-hmm. And then he like, it's like you realize like he's been like watching her all along, but like hasn't said anything. And then, like she grabs his finger. And he's like, it is tight, but she's so little. It's real weak. I'm going to have to be really strong for her. And I was like, oh, such a sucker. Right. And he's like, I love her. Right. Mm-hmm. It's great. But it really is like, again, like it's doing this work. Like I love Posy and I love the baby Mira and we're a family. And it's not just like a cheap baby log. It's really doing a lot of really interesting work.
Well, because also in that moment, like he's still just Dario, right? He's still like, I have to be strong.
Yes.
Like it's not love. I mean, it is love, but like in his head.
Right.
Like I'm still not sure. Like love, I feel like he still dances around it in a like really great way. Like he's still not sure he deserves it, not sure he's capable of it, not sure like for Dario, love is like really difficult to pin down. But like strength, right? Like that sort of I can protect. And from like the second he realizes he's wrong about Posy in chapter 1, he is protect is the guiding light.
Yeah. Well, and then like the part where they finally figure it out, right? Like she's run and they're in like, like away from the bloodbath or whatever. And, she says to him, sometimes I guess love is more like the person is yours. No matter if they feel the same way or not, they belong to you. And that's that. And this is when he says, then I love you. Does that make you happy? Right? Because all he wants is for her to be happy.
He's like, fine, what do I need to do? I love that. There's another I'm looking.
Oh, God. When he says mine a bunch of times, it's real hot. I feel bad for thinking that I'm garbage, everybody. It's fine.
No, you're not. That's very hot. I don't know what the problem is. It's fine. Hang on, wait. There's another line earlier. It's sort of, just before the chaotic scene with all the murder. And it's when they so he's gone down on her and then they're cuddling.
Oh yeah.
And he's like, I watch television.
I watch
know
TV.
Women like this.
I know.
And she's like, I think I just want to take a nap. Like, I don't. And then she's like falling asleep and he like yanks her over to like lay on him. And he's like, we're cuddling because we're cuddling. And she's sort of delighted by it. And she thinks to herself, this isn't love, but how can you tell the difference?
Yeah. Yeah.
And like, I think that that's fundamentally it, right? Like the word is irrelevant. Like love is a vibe.
Yeah.
Love is a state of mind.
Listen, it's great. Even when the baby, I'd sort of forgotten this, like, right, the baby grabs his finger at the end. He doesn't think like, I mean, yes, I want to protect her, but he thinks she'll need very close watching until she's big enough to defend herself. And I think a lot, like back to like the way that he like, right, like watched out in a terrible way for his stepmother. Like this is a man who actually does believe in women, I think in some sort of fundamental way, even though, listen, I'm not going to defend him throwing her in a trunk, but there is a way I think that, I don't know, it's very interesting. Like he does see them as distinct separate people, not just like an extension of, right, like him, his household, right? Like I think because of who he is, he understands them as fundamentally different.
Yep. It's a great read. If you haven't gotten there yet, you absolutely should get there now. And what else, Jen? Anything else?
I don't know. I hope there's, the promise of there is a sequel with Nikki the driver. Then
It's just the second in the series. And then there are a bunch of these. She's done a bunch of shifter romances. She's done a bunch of motorcycle romances. There's lots of other Cate C for you to try. I have one that's been on my Kindle for like 2 years. It's called After the Shut Up Ring. I think
she, you know what? This is an author who does like a lot of different things, right?
Yeah.
Like I think, and I bet that keeps it fresh for her, and I think that's great, right? There's a promise, I think, that like Luca, who like, right, that there would potentially.
Well, that's who I wanted next. I haven't read the Nikki book because I'm waiting for Luca.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm Sarah McLean. I'm here with my friend Jen Prokop, and we are Fated Mates. You can listen to us every Wednesday, wherever you get your podcasts. And if you loved hearing this and you want to talk about more romances, you can come and join our Patreon, where every member of our Patreon gets access to an additional episode every month and access to the Discord, where about 1,000 other listeners are hanging out talking about romance novels all the time. Hi to everybody on our Patreon. Happy anniversary. And what else? You can go to show notes. You'll see, if this were a week where we recommended a bunch of books, you'll see a list of all the books we recommended. In this case, you'll see information about Run Posy Run and all of the links that we promised we'd drop there. You can also find us online at Instagram, Blue Sky, and Threads. But, things are always changing, so who knows where we'll be. The Fated Mates Discord and the website will always be there. You can find Jen on June 30th in Chicago with Mia Sosa at Last Chapter Bookshop, talking about Mia's new book, When Hobby Dumped Mari. You can find us both at Fated Mates Live on July 8th in St. Louis. Tickets are at fatedmates.net/live. Listen, that is going to be a really fun time. A few hundred magnificent Firebirds, Jen, me, and Kate Claiborne. Stop it. It's going to be the best. That'll be with Novel Neighbor in St. Louis. If you can't make it there, July 8th is the release day for my new book this summer, These Summer Storms. So it'll be a big party too. If you can't make it to the party, come and see me on tour. You'll see Jen at least in Chicago. You may see Jen in Indiana with me. If you visit me at any of the other tour stops, I'll have Fated Mates stickers, Fated Mates pins, and stories about Jen that I'll be happy to tell you. You can find all of that information again at fatedmates.net/live. That'll take you directly to my tour schedule, and you can see everything there. And don't forget to stay tuned. Right after the show, you'll be listening to a sneak peek of Alexis Daria's audiobook from Along Came AMOR. Thanks again to Alexis and to Avon Books for sponsoring this week's episode.
Chapter 2. It was early evening, and the restaurant in the Dulce Playa Hotel's lobby wasn't full. Only a few people sat in booths scattered around the open space. The dim lighting emphasized the tasteful deep blue and gold color scheme, and a classic rock song played low in the background. Ava perched her butt on one of the high chairs stationed at the bar. With her long legs, she was practically the same height as when she'd been standing. Old Ava would have been mortified to drink at a bar by herself, but new Ava had a book in her purse, and she would survive this. Turning over the menu, a lovely piece of textured navy blue cardstock with gold foil lettering, she immediately spotted the rosé option. She was tempted to order it anyway, regardless of Damaris's decree. But one glass cost more than an entire bottle did at Ava's local liquor store. Besides, she was starting a new chapter, right? Might as well let the universe decide for her. Closing her eyes, Ava swirled her index finger for 3 seconds before jabbing it down on the signature cocktails menu. When she opened her eyes, she peered at the drink the universe had chosen. A limón dulce. Maybe that was like lemonade. Could be refreshing. Despite being October, it was a hot, humid day. Ava made eye contact with the bartender, a fresh-faced young woman with a rosy complexion and dark hair slicked into a low ponytail. She wore the Dulce's uniform of a black vest over a dark blue button-up with a name tag that read Luz. What can I get for you? Luz asked as she made her way over. Ava offered a polite smile. I'll have limon dulce, please. You got it. Luz set a square napkin, dark blue with the Dulce logo stamped in gold, in front of Ava and moved a few feet away to mix the drink in a cocktail shaker. As Luz poured the liquid into a martini glass, she asked, You're here for the teachers' conference? Ava nodded. How did you know? I didn't think it was the other one. With a grin, Luz set the pale yellow drink on the napkin. Enjoy. Other one. Before Ava could ask, Luz moved away to help another customer. Ava murmured her thanks anyway, then discreetly sniffed the drink. The color bore an alarming resemblance to urine, but the crisp citrus scent reminded her of baking lemon bars with her little sister Willow in their father's kitchen. Ava lifted the glass to take a sip and nearly spit it back out. Forget lemonade. This was more like furniture polish, strong and sour, and nowhere close to the tangy sweetness she'd been expecting. Ava couldn't control her grimace as she swallowed. As the stinging in her mouth subsided, she set the glass back on the napkin and tried to school her features, hoping the bartender hadn't seen. So much for new experiences. She'd just go upstairs, order French fries, and watch Pride and Prejudice for the millionth time. Alone. The enormity of her loneliness hit her like a sledgehammer. She'd bottled things up during her marriage, acted like everything was fine throughout the divorce, but somehow, this disappointing drink was the last straw. The need to talk to somebody, anybody, welled up in her like a tidal wave. But there was no one. Jasmine and Michelle were busy with their new lives. Damaris wouldn't be there until later that night. Ava's mother worked the night shift as a NICU nurse. And never mind her dad or stepmom. They tiptoed around the subject of divorce like it was a contagious sickness, and Ava's father was in remission. Eyes hot, she blinked hard and pushed her glass toward the other side of the bar. As she was opening her purse to pay, someone approached on her left. Wary, Ava glanced at the newcomer. A ton of empty seats stretched along the bar. So why was somebody trying to sit right next to... Holy shit. Her thoughts stuttered to a halt as her gaze traveled over the man beside her, taking note of every handsome feature. Dark wavy hair with hints of silver at the temples, strong jaw, brown eyes, impossibly long lashes, and thick, straight brows. The faint lines at the corners of his eyes only added to his attractiveness, as if they were neon arrows inviting her to drown in their depths. The word that came to mind was dreamboat. Old-fashioned, but it fit him as perfectly as the dark blue silk suit that accentuated his broad chest and shoulders. On second thought, he could sit next to her anytime. With a friendly smile, he gestured at her glass. Something wrong with your drink? Shit. He must have seen her reaction. Embarrassment warmed her cheeks, but she tried to play it off, like the smooth timbre of his voice wasn't doing dark and delicious things to her. Oh no, the drink's fine. His expression turned skeptical. The face you made when you tasted it says otherwise. She waved a dismissive hand. I'm not really thirsty anyway. Eyes filled with amusement, he picked up the glass and sniffed. Then, to her surprise, he took a sip. Wow. With a slight raise of his brows, he set it back down and cleared his throat. Did you order that on purpose? I left it up to the universe, she grumbled. What was that? Nothing. I just wanted something strong, I guess. She wasn't going to explain the concept of new Ava to him. This wasn't what you were expecting? Not exactly. When he smiled, soft laugh lines bracketed his mouth. Let's get you something else. That's not... Wait, what are you doing? He rounded the end of the bar as if it were the most normal thing in the world. I'm going to make you a different drink. Ava stared at him, aghast, and darted a look at the bartender. Luz was helping someone else down at the other end, and paying this attractive stranger no mind. You can't just go behind the bar, Ava hissed at him. Across from her, he leaned his forearms on the polished wood surface. Why not? This man was handsome, but clearly lacking in common sense. Still, instead of walking away, she found herself answering his rhetorical question. It's not allowed. Says who? She sputtered, trying to think of a response. The law? What law? I don't know, but I'm sure this violates the hotel's liquor license at the very least. His smile became conspiratorial. I appreciate the concern, but I think they'll make an exception. She got the distinct impression that she was walking into a trap. And why is that? Because I'm the owner. Roman Vasquez. He nodded to her purse. Look me up before you have me arrested for impersonating a bartender. Some part of her still felt like he was fucking around, but his self-assured expression had her pulling out her phone. She typed the name he'd given her into the search bar, and there he was. Roman Alejandro Vasquez, CEO of VQZ Limited. Ava did a quick scan of the results. First, a list of Dulce hotel locations around the country, then a recent Forbes article about a real estate acquisition in Japan. Ava tried not to look at the headlines speculating his net worth, but it was impossible to miss the word million at the end. She zoomed in on a picture of him in a hotel lobby very much like this one, where he posed casually with one hand in his pants pocket. Then she glanced at the man leaning against the bar. Same broad shoulders, same easy smile, same dreamy brown eyes. What the photo did not capture was the way his brow quirked with amusement, his playful tone of voice, or the simmering heat in her chest caused by his equally obvious perusal of her. Well, she said, through a throat suddenly gone dry. That's you, all right. That's me. Roman's gaze flickered over her face. And you are? Now that she knew he wasn't some over-entitled asshole with no sense of propriety, she stuck her hand out for him to shake. Ava, I'm here for the education conference. Nice to meet you, Ava. He reached across the bar to shake her hand. His grip was firm and dry, but warm. The lobby was well air-conditioned, and her imagination supplied a flash of those warm hands running down her cool arms. She fought off a shiver, then chided herself. Instead of picturing where else this stranger could touch her with those warm hands, she should have brought a sweater. Cold? Mischief glinted in his eyes. Ava's cheeks warmed. Was he flirting with her? She was saved from having to reply when the actual bartender hurried over. Do you need help with anything, Mr. Vasquez? He gave Luz a pleasant smile. I'm good. Just getting back to my roots. Once Luz left to help another guest, Roman picked up the shaker and gave it a spin before setting it down on the bar. Ava raised her eyebrows. Are you trying to impress me? The look he gave her could melt a popsicle in winter. Is it working? Holy shit. He was flirting with her. She couldn't stop the smile that tugged at her lips. A little. Only a little? I better step up my game. He grabbed a dark blue glass bottle out of the fridge behind the bar and rolled it down his arm to land in front of her. Start with this. Ava lifted it to look at the label. What is it? Sparkling water. Oh. She gave a little laugh and unscrewed the bottle before taking a sip to wash away the taste of the limón dulce. Roman gave the martini glass in front of her a pointed look. What were you going to do? Pay for it and not drink it? Or drink it and suffer in silence? Ava sighed. Pay for it and not drink it. Well, we can't have that. He slipped the offending lemon drink away and dumped it out. How do you feel about rum? She twisted the cap back onto the water. I only buy it to make coquito. His eyebrows rose. ¿Tú eres Latina? Puerto Rican, on my dad's side. My mom is from Barbados. Boricua and Baja. I bet you make a killer coquito. She grinned. Don't tell my grandmother, but I made a few adjustments to her recipe, and all my cousins agree mine is better. Don't worry, Ava. Your secret is safe with me. Something about the way he said her name had goosebumps prickling up her spine. Her cousins would know exactly what to do in this situation. Jasmine would toy with her hair and lean forward to show off her cleavage. Michelle would make a sarcastic quip, the kind that managed to be equal parts funny and suggestive. But Ava wasn't like her cousins. She wasn't sensual or bold. She was practical and polite. So she ignored her pounding heart and warm cheeks and just murmured, "Thank you." Roman's gaze landed on her lips. She caught the rise and fall of his chest, like he was breathing deep. "My pleasure," he said in a low voice. And then he turned, breaking the tension that had wrapped thickly around them, to grab a bottle. He flipped it over to his other hand and said, "Let's start with a tasting." His movements were a blur as he spun a couple of napkins onto the bar and produced 2 small glasses from out of nowhere. He deftly poured a small amount of liquid into each. Ava was indeed impressed. "How do you know how to do all this?" "I didn't always own hotels," he said enigmatically, setting the first glass in front of her. "Smell this." Ava lifted the glass. It contained less than an inch of dark amber liquid. "Keep your lips parted as you sniff. You know how when something smells really strong, it's like you can taste it?" When Ava nodded, he continued, "Así mismo. You have olfactory receptors on your tongue. It's part of the tasting experience." Somehow, he even made olfactory receptors sound sexy. Ava parted her lips and brought the glass to her nose. "What do you smell?" Roman's voice was soft, nearly seductive, but also curious. "There's no wrong answer." She closed her eyes and inhaled. "It smells sort of sweet, like caramel apple. Also a bit woodsy? Oak, from the barrels." She opened her eyes in time to see him smile at her over the rim of his own glass. "Take a small sip." She did as he instructed, letting the rum flow over her tongue and paying close attention to the sensation and flavor. "Now, take another, and tell me what you taste." She rubbed her tongue against her palate, analyzing the flavors. At first, it's almost fruity, but then there's a bit of smokiness in there, rounding it out. "Do you like it?" "It's different," she said, then met his eyes. Hadn't she come to this bar looking for something new and different? He watched her intently, a smile teasing the corner of his mouth. "That's a dark rum. It's made of a blend of rums that have been aged up to 15 years. He held up a stout, sturdy-looking bottle. The black label read Casa Donato 15 in fancy gold lettering, with the faint outline of a large house and a number 15. There was something about the way he cradled the bottle. Not just like he was at ease behind a bar, but more proprietary. "Do you own this too?" She gestured toward the logo, and was rewarded when his handsome face broke into a wide grin. "How did you know?" She just smiled. "Lucky guess." "What do you think of it?" "I think if I'd just gulped it down, it would have been too strong. But drinking slowly like this, taking time to smell it and taste it, that's how you drink a good sipping rum," he finished for her. "Savoring every drop." Her heart thumped at the way he said savor. She got the feeling he was a man who knew how to linger over the things he enjoyed. "What are you doing?" she asked, when he shrugged his broad shoulders out of his suit jacket. The look in his eye was playful, but hinted at darker pleasures. "Don't think I forgot about making you a drink." "This isn't the drink?" "Not even close." He folded the jacket and handed it to her. As Ava took it, she caught a whiff of his cologne and automatically parted her lips as she inhaled. It wasn't too strong, woodsy, with a hint of sweetness and spice like his rum, but there was something erotic about the idea of tasting the scent of him. The thought made her glance at his mouth. If she kissed him right now, would he also taste like all the flavors she'd teased out of the rum? Ava quickly set the jacket on the seat beside her. They'd just met. She had no business thinking about tasting Roman's scent, or his mouth, or any other part of him, for that matter. She turned her attention back in time to see him roll up the cuffs of his sleeves, revealing thick forearms taut with muscle. The sight made her swallow a whimper. This man was far too appealing. Oblivious to her inappropriate thoughts, Roman launched into a flurry of movement, tossing bar supplies from one hand to the other, flipping them in the air and rolling them down his arm in a remarkable display of coordination and competency. By the end, there were 2 glasses sitting between them. Each held a large cube of ice, a couple inches of reddish-orange liquid, and a swirl of orange peel. Ava clapped. Okay, now I'm impressed. Roman executed a little bow. Mission accomplished. So, what is it? Roman spread his hands. This, he said, is my version of a rum Negroni. Or, as my mother calls it, he winced, a Romy Negroni. Her lips quirked. Cute. Thanks. So are you. She tilted her head and gave him an admonishing stare, but the effect was ruined by the smile tugging at her mouth. Are you going to flirt or tell me about this drink? His grin was lightning quick and just as exhilarating. Why not both? But then he lifted one of the glasses, his agile fingers turning it as if it were a prism catching the light. A Negroni is an aperitif, meant to spark the appetite, he explained. It has equal parts sweet, bitter, and spirit, usually sweet vermouth, Campari, and gin. I make this with a dark rum, dry vermouth, and chinola, a passion fruit liqueur from the Dominican Republic. I don't think I've ever had a Negroni. I'm more of a rosé all day kind of girl. His brows drew together. Then why not order that? She gave a little shrug. I wanted something different tonight. He nodded slowly, and she felt the weight of his simmering gaze like an embrace. He held his glass up in a toast. To something different. She repeated the word softly, unable to look away from him,